Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. On the 20th of November 2003, James Ignatius O'Rourke McMahon was elected councillor for the Failsworth East Ward of Oldham. Deeply ambitious, he ruthlessly rose to power, and by 2011, he was already leader of the council. In 2015, exploiting a Labour Party loophole, he became MP for Oldham West and Royton. If only the people of the town knew then what they now know. Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them. Good evening. It's the 31st of January and this is the Recusant Nine Transmission for another week. Pleased to have you all. This is supporters only and we put out edited highlights on YouTube for everyone else later. So I'm grateful to all of you who've joined me and let's get on with the show. Now, when I started this journey, I was approached very early on by someone who needed to remain anonymous. Now, I do know this individual. He is from Oldham. He worked for a time whilst I was raised in Westwood. Now, for those who don't know my past, I grew up in the middle of Westwood, Widdop Street, number 31 Widdop Street. And for Sean Fielding, Jim McMahon, and all the others who called me a Nazi or a far-right activist, actually, I'll be clear on this. The first time I saw a Nazi symbol in my life, I was 4 years old. I was going to school, and I woke up, and my dad opened the door, and in red paint there was a Nazi symbol, and the NFs, and Packies out, and all the rest of it, daubed all over my front door. And you know why I don't jump to conclusions? Was because people like Oldham I also lived and worked in the neighbourhood where I grew up. And when I came home at lunchtime, because it was the days when we walked home back for lunch and then went back for an afternoon session in the school, I came home to find my dad and at least 3 other neighbours and others from around the neighbourhood wiping clean my front door. And everyone else who wiped clean my front door were white people. So I'm not quick to judge. But that was the first time I saw the Nazi emblem. And Oldham and I share a love for the chip shop at the bottom and the sandwich shop at the bottom on Featherstall Road. And any of you who grew up in Westwood will know Greenwoods and the Chinese chip shop that was 2 doors along. All gone now. And the neighbourhood is nothing like it once was, I'm afraid. But I will bring on Oldham. Everyone thought I was Oldham and Moyab was Oldham and a whole host of others, and Neil Wilby has been desperately seeking the identity of Oldham. Sean Fielding and all the others have called him a racist and a far right. He's none of those things. He's just a working class lad from Oldham, like the rest of us. Let me bring him up. They are after you, mate, and they're after you because of what you've been exposing. Now, I'll be clear. The person who exposed that the council meeting was rigged was you, wasn't it? You know, that council meeting where Debbie Barrett Cole wasn't allowed to ask her questions. It was you, wasn't it, Oldham? You're the person who researched and evidenced how the young lad from Leeds, the candidate from Leeds, was a patsy and put up there as to waste time, and then Maroof as well.
Yeah, that was me. I was that man. And the thing is that people might think it's a bit silly using voice changing software and having a mask over my camera and stuff. But the thing is that both you and I know a person who, him and his wife, had a 3-bedroomed house and lived a quite nice little life, and they upset the wrong people within county councils and certain organisations. And what I was saying was that this anonymity, the voice change and everything, people might think that it's a bit too much, but both you and I know 2 people that have upset others within organisations and county councils that are now living in their car, a man and wife who had a nice 3-bedroom house. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He's lost everything. Yeah.
Absolutely everything. And so, I mean, they've been after me, and I've been up to various tricks and stuff. But tonight, I'm going to share something that hasn't been shared before, and maybe we'll drop a mouth or two. A little bit of background first. With the grooming incidents in every town in the north, there are certain keys that you can see. There are triggers that every single place has in common, and one of those is taxis. Taxis always come in these areas where the grooming's going on. The thing is that a lot of people may have heard of the Rossendale taxi scandal, and it can be researched. You can Google it, and it's all there. You can find all the
I brought it up once, Oldham. I brought that up once where at one point there were more taxi drivers registered in Rossendale than people there, or something along those lines. Is that not the one?
There was one taxi registered for every 19 residents of the Rossendale area, and the reason why is because certain dodges were going on, certain checks weren't being done, so expenses were being saved, and one of the expenses that was being saved was DBS checks. So these checks weren't being done. People were getting taxi licenses very, very easily, and so Oldham taxi drivers were registered in Rossendale. Taxi drivers from Bradford were registered in Rossendale. They were all over the northwest. There was uproar, and it was just the same as what we've got going on now in Oldham was going on in Rossendale with regards to the taxi licenses, and the council weren't listening, and it was being covered up, and the press were doing the damage control that we've seen here with certain reporters, and it's still going on now, and it still hasn't been fully exposed. But I want to share a little something with you now. In Rossendale, when all this was going on, the leader of the council was somebody called Alison Barnes. Now, Alison Barnes was seen at many functions, very, very friendly and familiar with the local reporter. Now, the local reporter, just 1 second, that's my telephone. The local reporter was the chief reporter for the Accrington Observer and a reporter for the Rossendale Free Press. Get ready for this one, because that reporter was a certain Charlotte Green.
Yeah, so it was Charlotte Green worked up in Rossendale and helped cover up the taxi scam up there. Yeah. Now, what you need to do, I think, Oldham, I don't want to take this from you, is you need to share what that taxi scam was actually about. What was the scam about, so people understand?
Well, the thing is that because taxis were recognised as being one of the things within grooming and everything, DBS checks they tightened up on taxi licenses everywhere, and DBS checks being one of the most important parts about it. So what happened is that people, to keep their anonymity, and even people sharing taxi licenses, it was easy to go to Rossendale and get registered. Didn't matter where you lived. You
basically you could be a rapist, you could be a dodgy member of the grooming gangs, you could have been done for having young girls in your cars elsewhere, but if you went to Rossendale, you were taken care of.
Exactly. That's exactly what went on, and anybody's free to go on Google and type in Rossendale taxi scandal. They can also Google Alison if they want to. That was the chair, Alison Barnes with a Y. And good old Charlotte, like I say, she was the press there. And what a lot of people fail to understand is that a political party, you can always break everything down into smaller components. A party, when it wins or when it's in power, it's like a business. They headhunt, they bring people to the area and give them jobs, and their contacts give them jobs in areas where they want to keep control. It's the same with a government. When a government wins, they set the cabinet up. It's all the little friends that know that they're going to roll with exactly what it is they want. Local council works no different, and the businesses that are basically trying to get the favour of the local council, will bend over backwards. Oh, well, we'd like such a reporter on your paper. Yeah, not a problem. We'll see if we can get her. And it works like that. So yeah, good old Charlotte. She's got previous.
Wow. So Charlotte Green, clearly then, after being involved in her close relationship, and she would have only been young at the time, or much younger at the time, in a close relationship with the chief executive up in Rossendale. And the Rossendale scandal now is a national scandal. Everyone knows what happened there, or everyone in our field knows what happened there and who used it. What's now took place is Charlotte has been headhunted and moved to Greater Manchester to provide a similar service. That's what you're telling us, isn't it, Oldham?
That's what I'm led to believe. And the words that were given to me, the way that it was actually put to me, is that they were seen at functions and they were very, very friendly, the two of them.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I know about the chief executive and I know about her personal life, and I know enough about Charlotte's personal life because she puts it on Twitter and social media. It's not, so none of that is difficult to piece together, and it's a story as old as politics. So that doesn't, that makes all the sense in the world. So tell me, how does it feel? I mean, to be the most wanted sort of I am Spartacus sort of guy, because you're right to hide your identity, mate, and all of that. But we share a common history, so we've met each other in real life, and you have that history in Westwood with me, don't you?
Oh yeah, I've been about a little bit, but it's at the end of the day, it's the older generation of Oldhamers, myself included. It's very deep rooted, and we're a proud people, and the town is just going to absolute crap, and it's not on. We need to fight back. It needs to get sorted this now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. And you've been fighting very, very hard, and people are after you and calling you a Nazi and a far-right activist. And I'm sure if it got back to your employer in the same way it's got back to other people's employers, you'd be out of a job, I think, mate. Yeah, so because that's what Sean Fielding does. He abuses his position and falsely claims people are far-right activists and uses his official position to make that claim. So you're right to disguise yourself. Now, disguising, you still have links though, don't you? You still got links in Glodick and Werneth and places like that with, white people, Asian people, all sorts of people, like all of us do. So tell us, tell us a bit about some of the information that your own sources are bringing to you. Well,
actually, because I am anonymous, and because of the basically, I've got myself into a position of trust a little bit now, which means that I do get contacted by people of all ages, of all races, and even a few Asian Muslim women have contacted me. And I'll just share a little something for that, which is, well, let's just say it won't surprise you, but it may surprise a few. And I'm going to read now a message, and I'm going to take names out of it because names were named and everything. And this is the message one of the messages that I was sent. I have just been in my local shop, and a big guy was in there asking for money for name deleted from name of charity. He looked like a heavy or something. The shop handed over £150. That's all tax-free money they are getting. £100 to £150 from all the local businesses funding these charities to run wherever they and the name deleted are going to. It seems there's more than one dealer using this trust as a front, delivering food parcels and stuff. Oh, and what else have they been delivering? Us, all the Glodick delivering us. All the Glodick dealers were delivering much needed essentials during lockdown.
Pause. All the Glodick dealers, yeah?
Yeah.
So that we mean, so people are clear, what that person means is all the Glodick drug dealers, yes?
Yeah. Now
carry on, sorry. I just wanted to pause there so people understood. Carry on.
I verified that with a couple of mutual friends of ours. One of them, quite a high-ranking police officer, who said that yes, that definitely follows a pattern, and yes, it does look like in effect is protection rackets being disguised as charity work. And I contacted one of my people in Rotherham, and the person in Rotherham got back to me and said that is exactly the same as what they've been seeing in Rotherham. And not only that, there are hardened criminals, his exact words were, there are hardened criminals who are frightened to death of them.
Yeah, because these aren't just hardened criminals, mate. These are Islamists. These are jihadists. These are the ones who will chop your head off, not for money. They'll chop your head off because of an ideology. And they have access to some of the most, awful people in the world and networks in the world where they can, you just look at the arena bombing, for instance. So this thing, and I've got to bring it up now, and it's a shame I've got to do this, because I know so many of the people who tune in here are decent people who give to charity and try their best and stuff. But you're all being played. And I'm really, really sorry, but you're all being played. How many of you have donated to these local community groups? And I use the term loosely. Local community groups who've just suddenly decided that they're champions of international aid and are able to channel aid to Yemen. They've done it before, to Kosovo, to Afghanistan, to, wherever there's a conflict, an Islamic conflict. But you've been played. And it's not just that you've been played. What's taking place is even more sinister in 3 ways that I can think of immediately. The first way is that it's protection money, and it's gangsters and drug dealers at a very local level, like you've just described, Oldham, who go into shops, stand there, and they get money because they're giving money to, Yemen, or taking money to Yemen. And what these guys do is they combine that money with all the drugs money that they need to clean. And that drugs money goes via Dubai. Remember I shared a story with you all a couple of weeks ago about a senior counsellor going and partying with criminals in Dubai who are wanted in the UK for fraud. So that's drugs money that goes to Dubai. And these heroin dealers, as part of their rehabilitation, go off to Yemen. Or before, they went off to Afghanistan, or Libya, or Syria. This is starting to sound familiar. And then what happens is they network with whatever is the current name, local name, for Al-Qaeda. And they're trained by Al-Qaeda. Have a look at the profiles. Have a look at the profiles of so many of the jihadists in the UK. So many of them are white reverts, or they're ex-Pakistani or Bangladeshi heroin dealers, gangsters. I'm not making this up. Ask the police. They'll confirm this with you. That's exactly what's going on. So these guys are... So when a charity car wash suddenly raises £2,000 or £20,000, when the fire brigade can't raise 200 quid with all of their equipment, you need to start to ask yourself some questions. Just hang on there, mate, whilst I play something. I just want to play something and give people some context. So this isn't new. This goes back to during the time of Obama as the President of the United States. So it's only a 2-minute clip, but I think you guys need to hear this.
The Obama administration now starts every day worried that Al-Qaeda in Yemen is trying to attack the U.S. An administration official tells CNN there's plenty of reason to worry. Al-Qaeda's English language magazine has just issued a call for fighters in Yemen who have U.S. passports, visas, or anyone who can legally enter the U.S. and then attack businesses and population centers. The magazine details how to make explosives, but then goes further. AQ in Yemen, known as AQAP, has instructions on how to communicate with its commanders who approve attack plans.
If AQAP in Yemen continues to target the U.S., and we see all indications that it is, getting somebody with a U.S. passport or an ability to get inside the United States because of visa waiver is the best way to do it.
Many experts say AQAP is now a bigger threat than the decimated ranks of the al-Qaeda organization still hiding in Pakistan. With political unrest still weakening the Yemeni government, al-Qaeda has a ready influx of fighters from Saudi Arabia, Somalia, and the United Arab Emirates. AQAP fighters, now 1,000 strong, triple the size of the group 2 years ago, operate in strongholds across southern Yemen, and it's a group with growing influence.
It started providing services, delivering water, hooking up houses to electricity, things that had never been done by the previous Yemeni governments.
There you go. So I wanted you all to hear that because I think it's really significant. Because what's taking place is a lot of these community groups fronted by drug dealers that are flying out aid to Yemen. They're doing several things. They're taking money for a protection racket. They're clearly cleaning their money via Dubai and places like that. And thirdly, those lost souls who are looking for redemption, many of them are ending up in Yemen and are recruited by Al-Qaeda. And they will be coming back to this country and they will be blowing something up just like the last lot did and the lot before and the lot before that. And in this town, we have that problem. So Oldham, it's more sinister than just what these people... And who brought you that, Oldham? Was that a Muslim woman who brought you that?
Yeah, that was an Asian Muslim lady who lives in Glodick. A lot of people don't realise, what they will do, is that a charity is actually the easiest way to launder money because you have no accounting. It's donations. Everything's donations. There's no accounting to be done. They don't have to prove tax. They're tax-free. It's a charity. So that money is basically it's invisible money.
Yeah, I know all about that from my dealings with Oldham Central Mosque and the amount of cash that was channeled through there as loans and then given back legitimately. So I know and those of you who are from my community who know the history of Oldham Central Mosque and other mosques like that will know of their very unhealthy relationship with money launderers because that's what they are. They're money launderers. And then they become gangsters, and then now they become... And the pathway to extremism is a well-trodden pathway to extremism. So thank you very, very much. Now, I know I'm never going to reveal your identity. I get the odd message every now and then from people. Some of them are here. Do you know who Oldham is? He's fallen out with me. He's done this. He's done that. And I said to everyone, he's a good guy. He's got his own, he's got his own issues going on in his life, and he's trying his best, and he's trying his best for his hometown. Now, what's your take? Anything else? What's your take on the later stuff at like the Burnham stuff? What's your take on the delayed investigation? Because you and I first came together as adults over the CSE, and then we both heard just before Christmas of how it had been kicked into touch for at least another 6 months. So what's your take on all of that?
Do you know, you can group it all in one thing, really. Is Burnham is a liar. He's a proven liar, and he is deceptive. And I know for a fact that he's a liar. He's now claiming that he had no prior knowledge of the corruptions and the grooming cover-ups and everything. I know for a fact that Peter Jackson, Maggie Oliver, Matt O'Donoghue, believe it or not, Willaboobies had a meetings with Burnham quite a long time ago, and they made it perfectly clear all the failings that were going on. And he said, I can give you an hour. And they said an hour to go through all this. And he said, oh no, this is just the first of we'll have many meetings about it. Well, guess what? No more meetings went on. But he was made well aware, and he's covered it up ever since and thrown his hands up and pleaded innocence. He's a liar, that man.
Yeah. Well, I think he's more than a liar. I think he lies for a purpose, and he said himself, give him credit. He's on record for saying the Labour Party comes first. He's not hiding it, is he? It's in plain sight. The Labour Party comes first, is what he said. Now, unfortunately, there are factions within the Labour Party, and I think he's about to topple. That's him. So that's really interesting, isn't it? First of all, what you've got is Charlotte Green was involved in Rossendale, and the story of the dodgy taxi drivers was taken to Charlotte Green as a reporter. And true to form, Charlotte Green, who was very, very close with the council there, helped kill the story, didn't report on it. Does that sound familiar to Oldham? Yeah. And then the story of what is essentially protection money, aid to Yemen. It's not aid to Yemen. It's funding the jihad. That's what that is. Funding the jihad. You've got to laugh, haven't you? You've got to have laughed at this when you saw it. Because I know I laughed at it. I'll just zoom it to the right level. Sean Fielding was on the oldham.gov.uk with the crest in the background, with that pose of his with his suit on. Yeah, and that stubble. I'm not sure he thinks he's a leader of a council. I think he spends more time on grooming himself rather than he does on engaging that brain of his. But let's see. So this is what he says: follow the rules, stay safe, and help protect the NHS. Oldham Council. Were only days earlier he'd done this. Oldham in lockdown. Him and his girlfriend had done one to Derbyshire. Remember, they lived round the corner from Daisy Nook. Well, look at that. Not only had they gone off, he'd put it up on Twitter how he'd gone to Derbyshire. And then he tried to explain himself. His reason for going to Derbyshire was that it was quieter there than the number of people in his own town who were in Daisy Nook. So, where he went, he reckoned, was more of a COVID secure than going local. So he admits, I'm not sure I would have been as COVID secure going local. So there is an admittance that he didn't go local. Yeah, this is how thick the idiot is. There's an admittance he didn't go local. And then he's backtracking as people are trying to ask him what he's doing, breaking the rules. You can travel for exercise. Unfortunately, the rules around travel for exercise are very, very clear. If you need to travel, we encourage you to walk or cycle where possible. To spend time or exercise outdoors, this should be done locally, wherever possible. So he's admitted he could have gone locally to Daisy Nook, so he knows about Daisy Nook and he could have, and he chose not to go to Daisy Nook. And now this hypocrite piece of scum is claiming he's out there dressed in his suit, asking the rest of the town to follow the rules, stay safe, and help protect the NHS. Now remember, this man went on holiday during COVID and lockdown. Went off to Lanzarote knowing full well that it was on the list of places against Foreign Office advice, and when he came back, he had to self-isolate. And now he has the audacity to preach to the people of the town to follow the rules, stay safe, and help protect the NHS. What? It's hilarious, isn't it? And this is the next bit. This is the bit why we've not managed to get rid of him. Because the elections were called off last year. And it seems English council chiefs, now remember, Sean Fielding is one of these English council chiefs, want to postpone May elections, and they want to postpone it to October. So, whilst they, all of them, and I don't see the fascination with American politics, but they all follow American politics. They all followed the United States politics to do with Biden and Donald Trump, and all had an opinion on it. But none of them had an opinion on don't hold the elections. But in their own country, in their own councils here, these people want to cancel democracy. They want to cancel the elections, postpone the May local elections. And the reason you like this, you really like this, lack of venues, volunteers, and safety of voters and polling staff. People are going to work. I went to the supermarket earlier. It was packed with people who were working there, never mind shopping there. You're expecting us to send our children to schools, or we were sending our children to schools, and it's ridiculous. He and his mates want to postpone the councils, but they won't resign. They won't step down. They'll be on the gravy train for another few months at the very least, hoping that they can ride out what is taking place in Oldham and that they will get elected. That is why Sean Fielding must be held accountable this May. And if there are no elections, should they not be making that public? Should Sean Fielding, Howard Sykes is also up for election, should they all not be stating their opinion? These are our elected officials. Should the MP Jim McMahon and Debbie Abrahams, who likes to chat about Pakistan and Kashmir, not have an opinion on the democracy in her own country? It's not like COVID is new. Last year's elections got cancelled. We've had a year to prepare. We can do all these other things, but we can't put an X on a scrap of paper and shove it in a little box at a ballot station. The reason, Paul, he can't walk around Failsworth is because the people of Failsworth have seen him for what he really is. He's a barefaced liar who should be in prison himself. And the reason he's a barefaced liar and should be in prison isn't just how he abused his position to assault ordinary human, townsfolk, get them sacked, try and get them sacked, falsify allegations using official council letter. No, it's not just that. And I've been asked repeatedly about this, and I'm adamant on my information. Children at Failsworth School, where Sean Fielding was a governor, were abused, sexually assaulted for the best part of 15 to 20 years. And one of the individuals who ended up marrying one of the children, that's right, marrying one of the children, played in the band with Sean Fielding and was allowed to continue to access children in the school where Sean Fielding was a governor. It's impossible Sean Fielding not to have known about this. There is a network of teachers, and as I showed last week, support staff like that table tennis coach who sexually assaulted our children in Failsworth School. And they have been left to roam free because their crimes have been covered up. Now, I'm sure all of you agree with me. If we stand against the Asian Grooming Gangs who are parking up their cars outside the school gates and luring these kids with bottles of vodka and McDonald's, surely we are equally disgusted by the white teachers inside who kept children behind. Now, some of you have been in touch with me over the last week or two as I reveal this about Failsworth School, and you've been horrified because you've gone and validated by asking your own children or other young people you knew who went to the school at the time. And you've been horrified because you've come back and all of you have told me the names of the teachers and cross-referenced the exact same names. But more importantly, you've been horrified because even the children knew what was going on. Even the children knew what it meant when Mr. X or Mr. Y asked the young girls to stay behind after school or stay in the classroom, even though it was break time. They all knew what was going to happen to that poor girl. The sexual abuse of children can't have just been taking place in Failsworth School, because this is institutional. This failure is institutional. It's an institutional failure to protect what is essentially white working class girls. They were groomed, they were raped, and some of them ended up marrying. And the teacher still was allowed to teach in the school. And the reason, you'll see, he's always repeatedly attacked me or said something about me, him and all of his mates. None of them will comment on this because it's true. And they are incriminated. They are neck deep in it. Now, where is Burnham's investigation team of Newsman and Ridgway? Where are they? Why are they not investigating Sean Fielding and his relationships in Failsworth School and Oldham Council's management of Failsworth School whilst this took place? I'm led to believe, and I've seen enough evidence to know it's. I believe what I've what people are sharing with me. Similar took place at Royton and Compton School. We already know about the grooming gangs outside Counthill, Havershaw. This man has the audacity. He has the audacity to pose for a picture and say this. Who is he? Who is he to tell the rest of the town what to do? Barefaced liar. I shared with all of you last week that all was not well in Oldham Labour. All was not well in Oldham Labour. And there was a fight brewing, a civil war between the former master and his protege. Jim McMahon had washed his hands of Sean Fielding. Now, he'd washed his hands of Sean Fielding for a couple of reasons. One was because McMahon himself had found himself questioned by Burnham's grooming gang, so Fielding hadn't done his job in protecting McMahon the way McMahon wanted to be protected. Secondly, Fielding himself is under investigation by the police, and we know the police are dragging their heels and are trying not to even question him, but that will have its own series of consequences should it play out like that. But they've not dismissed it, have they, Sean? They've had it for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Mark, you'll have to remind me, Mark. I'm sure you're on the Mark Wilkinson. You'll have to put a post up and remind me when, or Moyab even, when you went to the police and how long they've had this for. Now, the shadow transport minister can't be seen to associate himself with someone like Sean Fielding. Not now. And not when, at a local level, Sean Fielding's loyalty is now no longer to McMahon. It's to Andy Burnham. Remember, Andy Burnham has made him the chair of something. I think it's the Enterprise Committee or something at AGMA. So he gets a hefty allowance for that. Andy Burnham has given his girlfriend a job, so she gets a hefty wage for whatever it is she does that she's never done before for him. And in return, Sean Fielding displays his loyalty to Andy Burnham to make sure that whatever Greater Manchester want to do in Oldham, Sean Fielding and the others who eat from the table of Andy Burnham will do their best to make sure it's passed. So, for instance, all the Greenbelt stuff and the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, that Stockport destroyed, not Oldham. Oldham refused to vote on it, remember, because of what Stockport had done. Rather than vote it down, they refused to vote on it. So Sean Fielding is happy to sell out our Greenbelt. And now what's come back is Sean Fielding is happy to support the building of an incinerator in the town that will transport in all the waste from across Greater Manchester. So Sean Fielding is happy to support, and the Labour Party in Oldham are happy to support Oldham becoming the toxic dumping ground for the region. Now, the problem is, this would nearly have gone through without a single eyebrow being raised. Remember, the Lib Dems are next to useless on this. They only jump on it at the end if it suits them, and more times more times than not, their loyalty is to Sean Fielding. In return, Sean Fielding helps hide their misdemeanours, such as Rod Blythe being a convicted sex offender. And now, what's happened? Because we and others like us have raised this and publicly raised this, Bashforth, remember Barrelgate Bashforth? I did not take a bribe, councillor for Royton. Publicly shamed. I think Kel is here. Put that up on one of my threads where he contradicted himself and denied knowing anything about it and all the rest of that, and just showed himself for being not very good with either his memory or telling the truth. Knowing that his paycheck and his wife's paycheck is at risk, and the people of Royton are starting to understand what has taken place here, they've gone running to Jim McMahon. And Jim McMahon, even though he's the MP, has realised the consequences in Royton for his votes and his support. And remember, this is the man who really controls the town. So the Labour Party councillors, Bashforth, his wife and the others, have just cut out the monkey and gone straight to the master, the organ grinder. And now McMahon is run to the press that he controls, and we're starting to find out the truth of what this is about. It's the first time the Oldham Evening Chronicle, the shameful, disgusting piece of shit liars that they are, along with the Oldham Times, has used this term, incinerator, and described what it actually is. The height of 12 double-decker buses. The height of 12 double-decker buses. So McMahon has publicly got involved with these councillors, and it's the Labour Party in Oldham fighting the Labour Party. But actually what it is, it's Jim McMahon's faction fighting Andy Burnham's faction. Royton MP and councillors oppose huge 150-metre waste-to-energy plant that will be as tall as 12 double-decker buses. £150 million waste-to-energy plant. Tall as 12 double-decker buses. MP and councillors line up against £150 million energy recovery hub for Royton. Remember, that's what they were all calling it before. They weren't using the word incinerator. Energy recovery hub. And this is the Oldham Chronicle. This is why I swore at them. This is the artist's impressions of what they think these things will look like. How the new plant in Royton could look. There's nothing there about. And on top of a chimney and burning all that waste, 4,600, and these are their estimations, so you know it's going to be 2 times that. Heavy vehicle movements per year, that's 4,600, I'd say 10,000. Call it 10,000, let's be honest. Heavy vehicles from across the region will be coming to burn waste here. But it's okay. The landscape would also be developed in a comprehensive way, including addressing ecology issues, enhancing the natural habitat, and providing improved access to the site. The application states that development will be visible. Let's give you some context. One double-decker bus is give or take 4.5 metres tall. 12 double-decker buses, so everyone in Oldham understand what these bastards have been trying to get away with, what Sean Fielding and his scumbags, because they should have killed this right at the beginning. They should have killed this right at the beginning. But they entertained it because it suits Andy Burnham and the Greater Manchester plan of making Oldham the dumping ground of Greater Manchester. Ready? How high 12 double-decker buses are? 12 double-decker buses, give or take, is the height of the civic centre. They want to build a toxic tower the height of the civic centre. It's like something out of the Lord of the Rings with the two towers. So you've got the ivory tower where all the paedophile protectors are, and you've got the toxic tower down the road. Do you not think we should have been told before now? Does anyone believe that Barrelgate, the bootlegger Bashforth, and his wife and his mate from Royton have gone running to McMahon now, if not for us and people like us, who have made sure the entire town is made aware of what they're planning and what they're doing? Sorry, I've just seen something I've got to put up. Oh my. How can this idea even be entertained? Why is every councillor in this town not issuing a statement immediately saying, I am alarmed to hear of these plans and I will be opposing them. I object to poisonous gases being released into the skies above the town where our children will be breathing in toxic chemicals. How hard is that statement? Now, what you don't understand, or you do understand, but I'll share with you anyway, is this battle now has strengthened the hand of a certain Arooj Shah. Remember, Arooj Shah has an eyebrow in each camp. In one camp, she is Jim McMahon's employee. In the other camp, she is on the growth company and eats at the table of Andy Burnham. She's also got, I think if I carry on the analogy about her nose, people will jump to a whole host of other conclusions, so I won't do that. Now we know what's going to happen because McMahon's done it before. He got rid of the last leader because she wasn't doing as she was told. He'll get rid of this one as well. The next leader of Oldham Council, ladies and gentlemen, will be Arooj Shah. Councillor Arooj Shah, who, as well as being the next leader of Oldham Council, oh, come on, could be worse. She could be mayor. Can you imagine who she'd bring along to parties if she was mayor, wearing that mayoral chain round her neck? Fielding's finished. Short of a Warren Bates miracle, who can split the vote, Fielding is toast. He still believes Angela Rayner's going to take care of him and that he has a chance of the MP seat in Rochdale. That's what my insiders are telling me. He still believes he has a political future. Maybe he does. I just don't want him to have a political future in our town. He's gone awfully quiet, Mark. And the reason he's gone awfully quiet is because his mate Burnham's in trouble, big trouble. But he's gone awfully quiet because of the shameful cover-up of the systematic abuse, sexual abuse of students at Failsworth School. Now remember what these people want to do, and I've shared this from the beginning, what they want to do is they want to import rubbish, de-skill the town comprehensively and completely, so we can export cheap labour to the rest of Greater Manchester. And if we attract any businesses, it's barely minimum wage businesses for menial tasks. This once proud town, these people are destroying because for the Twin Towers to exist, poverty needs to be the industry of this town. Yeah, and the Northern Route stuff, the glamping. Oh, I like that, Rocky. You know, I like, people have seen I enjoy my words. Glamping next to the ghetto. Sounds like the sort of a headline I'll have to use in one of my articles. Don't worry, I'll put a small asterisk and say from Rocky. Here's my up. How you doing, Mo?
Not so bad yourself?
I'm good. Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. I can see as well. You've got like a halo in front of you. Are you sitting under a light? You look like you're you've got there's something like, God is shining down on you and the rays of light and stuff. So,
it's the kitchen light. The only place I can sit me at the moment.
How you doing?
Kids are
You
running
well?
riots all over the house. Not so bad yourself. How you doing?
Yeah. So I'm sorry to hear about your in-laws and stuff. Maybe you've had a few COVID deaths in the family, haven't you? So all those people who say COVID is not real, you've been not left and right, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. It's my brother-in-law, my brother's in-laws. His father-in-law passed away the other week, and then 5 days later his mother-in-law passed away, and his brother-in-law's still in hospital. It's been several weeks, so it's been a very difficult period for the family.
Oh, my condolences, to your brother as well. He's a lovely man. If I'm ever passing his restaurant, I always nip in. Well, not during COVID, clearly, but up in what was it? Staley Bridgeway, isn't it? Denton? Is it?
Duckenfield.
Duckenfield, and you always it's an old school Indian restaurant, and anyone who knows anything about Indian restaurants, the old school ones are the best, and he always feeds me. So pass on my condolences, please. Moab, what do you make of what's going on with this incinerator? Come on, mate. It's the size of the civic centre. A chimney the size of the civic centre.
Clearly, there's some interesting developments going on within the Labour Party in Oldham. Clearly, I think you've touched on it already. There seem to be factions developing. From what I'm hearing on the ground, on the grapevine, is that some people are leaving Sean Fielding alone in the hope that he loses the election and the problem is solved for them. The problem isn't solved for the people of our borough, because waiting in the wings, whatever happens, is Anurag Shah and Sister Shah and her brand of leadership can take this town only in one direction.
Well, let's be clear, Mike.
Into the gutter.
Yeah, it's even further into the gutter, isn't it? Because remember, when the councillors, and these are cartel-controlled councillors, yeah? When the cartel-controlled councillors did not behave and clap with the vigour that The gangsters wanted them to clap when Arud Shah makes her speeches. These cartel councillors are threatened. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. There's one thing, one little analogy. Listen to your show from earlier, Raja. You mentioned about all these politicians watching American politics and the presidential election that's been going on between Trump and Biden. And for everything that Trump's done and may not have instigated with the attack on the Capitol, all the Republicans in the party know what's right or wrong, yet but nobody will speak out of fear. And we have exactly the same kind of politics in Oldham. The Labour Party, both factions, 2 or 3 factions, they all speak to us privately, but nobody will stand up publicly because they know if they do, that's the end of their political career in this town. We'll say,
I
Sean,
get calls.
what you're doing is wrong.
I get calls all the time from Labour councillors, Lib Dem councillors, Tories, ex, future, now, and I laugh at someone. I tell them, and I'll change the word, I tell them to get stuffed. I actually say a different word, but get stuffed, right? Because they think I'm going to do their dirty work for them, right? You have been elected to speak for on behalf of the people of the town. When you see an injustice, you have been elected to speak truth to power, not cover it up. And you want me to do it.
And not only are you elected, once you are elected and serve on the council, you have to swear that you will work for the people of this borough and for the interest of the people of this borough. But yet what we have is people who are only interested in their political careers and making sure they either keep Sean happy or they keep Jim happy or they're keeping the COVID Queen happy or it's one of the other MPs happy. It just seems to be people are in it for themselves and not really for their constituents.
It's you know what I find lovely about this, Maya, is out of this, you know, and I know we laugh at ourselves and we call ourselves rabble and stuff, but we've created a lovely group of people from all backgrounds and all faiths and stuff whose common interest is we just care about our town, you know, and it's lovely, yeah.
Brilliant.
Right, I'll bring this up, mate, and I'll do it in such a way where you don't need to see me, but you can see. There you go. I'll put this up.
What you throwing?
So what I've put up is how much Oldham MPs cost last year, right? So you've got to understand the context of this first. And the Oldham Times ran this article, Moyeb, right? And it's a picture of 3 smug-looking MPs. By a lady called Imogen Clyde Smith. Now, I'll get to Imogen Clyde Smith at a later transmission, I think. There's things about her I think the town need to know about her, basically the chief political news reporter for the Oldham Times, the council funding the Oldham Times. Now, the first thing you've got to understand about this and how this article made it, Moyeb, onto the Oldham Times, the council-funded Oldham Times, is this is just another manifestation of the fallout between Jim McMahon and Sean Fielding. Do you think for one moment the mocking of the three towns politicians would be allowed in a Labour Party council-funded newspaper otherwise?
Papers. It was online. And it was about Angela Rayner and her expenses.
Yeah.
And for somebody, it goes for all of them, actually, these Labour Party MPs and councillors and politicians. But before I say anything, can I first of all say, in this country, we live in the Western world, the way we live, we encourage people to earn a rightful living, to spend as they wish, to travel as they wish. So whether they travel first class, business class, I have no problems. But what I have a problem with people like Angela Rayner, who purport to be working class, fighting for the working class.
Yeah, they present themselves as socialists, don't they? They present themselves as socialists.
I class themselves as champagne socialists, constantly on first class travel at the public expense, but yet every opportunity she's in the news media, always talking about her roots and how they are fighting for social justice and all the other kind of rigmarole. Well, hang on a minute. Don't try and play it both ways. I for 1 second will not slag off anybody for traveling first class or business class or anything else. We live in a country where we encourage people to learn, to read, to write, to go and get a better job, to better themselves, and to enjoy the trappings of their earnings. But what I detest is these people purporting to be fighting for social justice and constantly going on about their backgrounds, but yet when you look through their expenses, it's a total different picture. Champagne socialist is the word that I use.
This is the bit that I find absolutely, and I filled in expense forms in government. So have you, yeah? It's a pain in the ass. You got to fill in the forms that can take. They take time, don't they? It's not, and it's fine. It's how it should be. But Jim McMahon claimed for a one-off expense for 31 pence. 31 pence. How it would have took him half an hour to complete a form to process for 31 pence for stationery and printing. I exposed him a few months ago because I didn't. Someone else sent it me and I shared it, and then he reacted the way he does, the scumbag. But he claimed for his TV license on expenses.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
But now he's claiming 31 pence for stationery and printing.
And why would you do that?
And indeed, Emma, Emma's brought this up, so I'll bring it up as well. Indeed, Emma. Angela now does indeed have a new long-distance relationship. She needs to travel to see him. That costs money. Yes, so Angela Rayner, as it seems, has a new long-distance relationship. It's been known in the Labour. I think it's someone who works for her or something like that, or works for the Labour Party.
What do we class as long distance in this current?
Well, it shouldn't be allowed, should it? It shouldn't be allowed. Never mind anything else. I see all the articles to do with all of that, but it shouldn't be allowed. But let me run through this. Yeah, the Shadow Secretary of State for Transport. So this is McMahon. Yeah, most expensive outgoings were his payroll. So his staff, right? This is Arud Shah and her mates that he's got on the payroll. His staff cost
151,000.
151,000, yeah, £197,000. He rents a flat. Bear in mind that from what I know, his wife and his kids, or his partner and kids, live up here, don't they? From what I know, they go to school here. My friends have told me they share a school and stuff. So his rent costs £35,933. What's that? £3,000 a month in rent?
Yep. Champagne socialism, if you ask me.
It's just disgraceful, isn't it? And Mark, I don't know if Irish Jimmy is on that payroll. What I do know, and what this town now knows, and the Labour Party knows, and it's apparently very, very uncomfortable for the Labour Party, is Jim McMahon provided a reference for the Oldham cop killer's getaway driver to aid with his probation. And what Jim McMahon is refusing to answer, and he's refusing to answer because he knows he'll be sacked if he does answer, is whether he gave Irish Jimmy his reference before he was recalled to prison with 2 mobile phones and a knife, or after he'd already been recalled to prison and had come back out. He doesn't win either way, does he, Moyab?
Nope, absolutely not. But the fact that he doesn't say anything, he talks about everything else. He now talks about an incinerator. He talks about everything else he wants to talk about. He pins things on his Twitter, so he's very active.
He's pinned on his Twitter the child safety failings involving me. He infers that, somehow I've had some child protection failures. I've never had a child protection failure in my life, Moyab. The scumbag, right? He hasn't even got the courage to call me out. I'm calling him out. He's the one who used Lee Rigby's funeral. He's the one who's done all in. I've not hidden what he's done, but he's trying to mudsling and infer stuff. Jim, you were once the councillor for Failsworth. You were once the councillor for Failsworth. Why are you silent? Why are you silent?
Roger, stop. Also, whilst he was on the council, he was also a governor at Failsworth School. Go back to the timeline, and he has some answers.
Oh, was it? Was he a governor at Failsworth School as well? I didn't know he was a governor at Failsworth School as well.
He was a governor at Failsworth School. And the previous MP, David Hayes, was also a governor for a long period at the school. Sean Fielding was a governor at the school. There is an overlap of all those issues that you've mentioned, and for more than one senior person in the Labour Party to have possibly taken positive steps to make sure news is buried. I'm pretty sure about that.
Well, what's shameful now is he, if he was a governor at Failsworth School, he would have been a governor around the 2010 sort of period. Yeah,
absolutely.
Where this table tennis coach last week was convicted,
and from earlier.
Wow.
Jim McMahon would have got on the council just after I got on, so sometime after 2000, maybe 2002, 3, something like that. So he's been for the best part of 20 years. He's been on the governors, or he's had very close links with people on the governors, and he's had very close links with the school. So you're telling me, and he was also the leader of the council. You're telling me he didn't know anything?
Well, he's
got a lot of things to answer.
Well, this is me to Andy Burnham, Newsman, Ridgeway, and Greater Manchester Police. Why are you failing to investigate the historic child abuse of students at Failsworth School that span over a decade, overseen by multiple Labour Party politicians, including Sean Fielding, Jim McMahon, David Hayes, and a whole host of council officers? Come and arrest me if you want, but that's the truth. Our children were sexually abused in that school. It's time they were held to account, and it's time that those who covered it up were held to account.
Absolutely. And the fact that for every day that goes by, they stay quiet is a dagger in the heart of all those victims.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
People you look up to, your leaders. And the thing is, Failsworth has been very fortunate, or unfortunate, shall I say, in the past 20 or 30 years, to have had extremely senior people on the council and various positions in Parliament and various other things representing the people of Failsworth. Whether we talk about mayors, leaders of the council, MPs, and yet they have been let down and everything has been shoved, not just under the carpet, it's been buried underground.
Yeah, it's like that, whatever that guy was who buried all the bodies under the patio in the garden. It's like that house of horror thing, isn't it? And that's what Failsworth School is. It's like a house of horrors. It's a school of horrors. Let's carry on with this, man, because you'll laugh at some more, right?
Oh, okay.
After his 31 pence, Debbie Abrahams, the MP for Kashmir, right? Oldham, East Saddleworth and Kashmir, has the second highest amount in outgoing, spending £198,689. £198,689. Remember, she's not even a shadow cabinet minister or anything. She's just a normal MP.
My goodness. Best part of 200 grand.
Yeah.
Doing what?
Going to Kashmir. But bear in mind, she also got paid expenses, didn't she, when she went to Kashmir? The group she belongs to got paid 30 lakh, whatever that is. Yeah.
30,000 sterling, roughly.
Yeah. So...
well,
Debbie
not bad
Abrahams.
if you get it. Well,
and then
she's getting it, so...
Angela Rayner comes in a close third, Mo. She must have forgot to put in one of her expenses. 198,117. So all three of them, give or take, right, are costing us £200,000 each.
How strange is that? All three of them so close in their expenditure. I mean,
well, in a business world, there's a phrase for that, isn't there, Paul? When you rig all your prices so they're all the same. What's it called, Mo? There's a phrase, isn't there? BA got done for it. Price fixing. Yeah, it's expense fixing. Yeah. That's it, Paul. Fred West. That's the name I was looking for.
Cromwell Street. Was it Cromwell Street or Cromwell? Is it Cromwell Street? That notorious fella.
And bear in mind, this is an addition. This is in addition, to their salaries and their pensions. Yep. Yeah, that go up every year by record rates. This is in addition to that.
So each one of them is costing us best part of £500,000 when you're taking all their expenses, all their income, all their pensions on costs.
Yeah.
So as a rough figure, somewhere near £500,000 each.
Yeah.
So for £1.5 million, the people of Oldham can see, for £1.5 million, our 3 MPs, this is what you get.
I'm in the wrong job, mate.
Incinerator.
I get 25 pence a week for off each of you. I'm in the wrong job. I need to run to be MP.
You get an incinerator. You get all the dodgy dealings going on. You get everything that's been going on at Failsworth School and everything else that's been released over the last year or two, all being shoved under the carpet for £1.5 million.
That's it. Ian reckons she would have, Angela's expenses would have been more if those Star Wars shoes were in the shop. They'll have been added onto the expenses.
Oh dear.
And it's David Gidman's around. Yes, David, they did get an extra God knows how much as well for working from home. So
oh yes, they got an extra 10 grand each for working from home for COVID, didn't they? On the first lockdown, extra expenses. Not that they needed extra broadband or extra telephone lines, did they? They were already getting them.
Cal, no, what I'm going to do, Cal, is I'm not going to stand for politics. But what I am going to do, Cal, is as soon as COVID's over, we're going to set up some form of community action group, Cal, and we're going to get that running. We're going to get our town back. Because not only do we need to get rid of the politicians at the top, we need to reinvigorate and give space to people at the bottom to contribute and make a difference and have their voices heard. So that's probably where I'll be heading. Because clearly by now, and you're here, but I shared it with you last Friday, didn't I? Because I was concerned because someone had shared a message to me and I sent it to you. Clearly by now, if I've been reported, you've had someone stand in Parliament and call for my arrest, and it hasn't happened because he lied. You've had Jim McMahon want me arrested by the Serious Fraud Squad. Then Neil will make reference to 7 live police investigations against me or something. The National Crime Agency is something else is apparently meant to be looking into me. These are the ones that do all the seizing of assets for, the gangsters and the drug dealers who have who go to shop in Harrods and places like that with millions of pounds in cash, right? And then and according to Sean Fielding, I'm being investigated under their whatever it is, operation whatever it's called, to do with Hexagon, to do with me being a sex offender. Now, clearly, none of those things are true, and the reason I'm not worried is because none of those things were ever true. But this was just mudslinging from the Labour Party and chief cheerleader Neil Wilby, because what she called, she's run away. Jen Williams has run away after being called out for being a liar and being found to be a liar, where she assumed quotes, where she made up stuff about me, and here I still am. So clearly none of that is true. So what do you reckon, Maya? What do you think of this nonsense to do with these expenses and also the expenses to do at a local level? So the likes of Sean Fielding, the likes of Arud Shah, I alluded to it earlier, they're all dependent on hefty bonuses from serving on Andy Burnham's Greater Manchester portfolio, don't
absolutely. They? So somebody like Arud Shah, so she'll get an allowance for being a councillor. She'll get a top-up allowance for being deputy leader of the council. She'll probably get an allowance for being one of Andy Burnham's Manchester crew. She'll be getting a proper wage from that 151,000 from Jim McMahon. She'll be getting a proper wage out of there. God knows how much she's getting. So she'll have about 4 or 5 different sources, and then maybe other bodies. So there might be 4 or 5, 6, 7 different bodies, sources of income that she's getting from, as well as maybe an ice cream bar here and there. You never know. Or a dessert place.
the ice cream parlour, Gelato's ice cream, changed hands mysteriously, didn't it? To her money laundering, convicted money laundering brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So she has several
it's a
sources
sham,
of
mate. It's an absolute joke.
So that's why every single one of them will not open their mouths or say anything, because they have so much financial interest in making sure that they stay in their positions. From Sean Fielding all the way down the chain, Jim McMahon, Angela Rayner, Debbie Abrams, all of them. Whether it's flights to Kashmir, whether it's trips here, there, and everywhere, whether it's TV licenses, whether it's 31 pence for stationery. God knows it probably costs more ink to claim that 31 pence for stationery than bloody fill the forms in to make the claim. But there you go.
No, it's a joke, mate. And what else have I got to ask you whilst I've got you on? Your weather reports. We all miss your weather reports, mate. But what I wanted to check with you about was this stuff that I released last week, because we've not had a chance to talk. What do you make of the? Because you are, in the scheme of Muslims, and I'm not embarrassed of saying this. In the scheme of Muslims, I'm not the most devout guy there is. Your wife tells me off all the time, and but you are. You're a mosque-going devout Muslim. What do you make of the Green Gate Trust?
No, I'm not devout. I mean, I try my best. That's all I can say. But I'm not the perfect person, as I would say. But I mean, that was quite shocking to me, to say the least. And we have been working on various platforms with young people for many, many years. Many, many years. I'm coming up to nearly 50 now, and we've been working with young kids since I can even remember.
Late teens. We've been working with kids for 30 years, Moyab.
So never in my time have I ever seen such blatant, what I would call abuse of a young minor, leading them in a particular way. You want to do missionary work, there's a time and place for doing missionary work. Go and convert adults if you can. Go and speak to the people on the streets. Go and knock on the doors. I mean, I have people from different faiths knocking on our doors, without naming them, different faiths. Whether there's Jehovah's Witnesses, whether there's Muslims, whether there's other faiths, come and knock on the doors, and I speak to them, and we speak politely and various other things. They have a missionary work to do, and that's fine. But there's a time and place for doing missionary work, but not missionary work with young kids.
And with the council money.
Especially with council funding activities, and especially with people who are working with these young kids, who I'm convinced won't pass the necessary security checks to be able to work with young kids. So
I raised that. I've got the email. I raised that directly with Dr. Carolyn Wilkins as a safeguarding issue many months ago. How can you have?
She's not here anymore, is she?
But how can you have convicted drug dealers accessing our children?
You can in Oldham. Welcome to Oldham, mate.
Yeah. Shameful.
Yeah.
And again, this is the interesting thing. I've had conversations, with Asian counsellors who are unhappy.
As shocked.
Yeah.
Unhappy, as shocked. But again,
they're too scared.
Too many people are scared and are scared of their positions and not willing to talk, which is a really sad thing, really. But they do talk to us in private, which is messaging and phone calls and various other things, but they're unwilling to say it in public, which is really sad, really.
And Mo, whilst I've got you on, so because I need some backing up here, and you've always backed me up, I got a bit of abuse from people saying, why am I using this picture and this video of this kid? You can share with me, or you can confirm that this picture and this video has been shared.
Before you shared that picture with me, it was already shared on at least on various platforms that I've seen, including my own mosque group. The picture arrived. The picture was widely circulated. There's also been other videos being circulated since where that young lad's gone to Friday prayers, and various people, even without masks in the mosque, have been hugging him and various other things during this COVID period. The whole thing is just shocking.
And it's been celebrated, hasn't it? As the sharing is a celebration of the conversion of a white kid to Islam.
Absolutely. I mean, you want to convert people, they can convert anybody. And, the missionary work is allowed. I ain't got a problem with it. But do it to adults. Missionary work, do it to adults. Do it to people who can understand and make their informed choices. You don't do missionary work with young kids who beggars belief. And then to celebrate it in such a way is, I've sat. I'll tell you a little story. Do you remember, Raj? In this house? No, the next direction in my mum's house. Do you remember Christopher?
Yeah.
When we were little kids,
Christopher lived at number 44 Widow Street. Christopher Ali lived at number 44.
Yep. So obviously his father was Bangladeshi, his mum was an English lady, and she became a Muslim. And I can still remember when I was a little kid when I was at the mosque, and when they're doing the conversion, and it was such a simple thing with the imam. None of this, yay, screaming and shouting and raving, and like let's sign this form and all the rest of the rigmarole. It seemed all very fake. It didn't. That's not the way. That's not the way you convert people.
But it's not just that. The chilling words were my youngest conversion to date.
Exactly.
It was my youngest conversion to date. Those were his own words. My youngest conversion.
I know various youth workers or very senior people in the council who have reached out to various individuals, including ourselves. I know they have to you and to me and to other people, and they were extremely, extremely uncomfortable. And we also know that the council has told people not to engage with any of Recusant Nine pages, and I know that they're watching your posts and and everything that's being said. But yet, some brave souls in the council are absolutely disgusted. But we also appreciate that people have livelihoods, they have mortgages to pay, and people are genuinely, the rank and file in the council are genuinely disgusted with this.
Well, there's a generation of kids.
The people in the youth service.
There's a generation of kids who now work in the council that we worked with, that we trained.
Absolutely.
So there's a generation of kids in the council in the late 20s and early 30s that we trained. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I worked for this council. I ran youth services for this council all across the bloody town. There's still a layer of senior council staff who worked with me, who not only know this is ridiculous, but absolutely agree with the value base that you and I and others like us are coming from. This is our town, these are our children, and we'll do the best for them. And this isn't the best for them. Having convicted heroin dealers access our children, supporting organisations who are on the jihad, because that's what this is, on the jihad, right? And funding them to convert our kids. This is disgraceful. Hiring teachers and covering up for paedophile teachers who are sexually abusing children in our schools, hiding paedophile counsellors. Come on. This is a council that is in crisis. This is a council that is, the audit commission were right all those years ago. This council, this town is ungovernable.
Welcome to Oldham.
Yeah,
anyway, speaking of weather reports,
go on.
Obviously, there's not been a weather report recently for quite some time, but I have written other reports. There was a boxing report that went down well. There was a history report that went down really well with with the modern day guillotine. So that went down really well. So we got some good feedback. But I'm pretty sure the weather reports will be arriving soon.
Well, the election season. And what do you think of the election? We've got to have this election, haven't we?
Yeah, we've got to have this election. The election's got to happen. There's too many elections that have been from last year carried forward. So in essence, this year is going to be a big year for elections. And looking at some of the polling data in the national press, clearly, I think Labour are not in a good space overall. The problem is in a place like Oldham, it doesn't matter what the national picture is. We always seem to turn out donkeys to still get as long as a red rose on it still gets voted in.
And let's have this conversation whilst you're here for the benefit of everyone else, because you and I have had this conversation, because I was a staunch Labour Party supporter when I was younger, worked for the Prime Ministers, both of them, and all of those sorts of things. And you are a Lib Dem councillor, yeah? Now, why don't you share the story of how it is that you and a generation of people who were excluded ended up joining the Lib Dems? Share the story. You share the story.
Yeah. Well, essentially, people from our backgrounds and from where we are, especially in Colders, and especially where we come from, working class backgrounds. My father worked in the mill from when he first came to the country in 1966. They worked in the mill, working double shifts. So we are naturally people that the Labour Party should be looking out for. Yet what we have in Oldham and in our local place is where the cartels controlled the whole community to the extent where, to the detriment of people, depending on where you were born or which village you were born from. and that's where it sort of stemmed from. Actually, moving on and trying to find a space where and working with a party that actually believe in what we want to do. So obviously the natural ground what then became the Lib Dems. So
the Labour Party wouldn't let you in. The cartels that control the Labour Party wouldn't let you in. Yep.
No, well, they wouldn't say that in that many words, but essentially, there was no way you can go in and progress or do anything because they won't let you infiltrate their clans, shall we say. And to this day, so for example, if you look in Coldhurst, Councillor Abdul Jabbar has been the Coldhurst ward councillor now for the best part of 30 years, 3 decades. Even his own supporters, the young ones, the really good people who are really well educated, even they can't get a look in. And you and I know there's a number of people who are capable of representing people in my ward in Coldhurst, but yet they're having to move out or go and find other seats, or even probably, or will never get a seat because they do not conform to the cartel culture.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it, Mob? It's a cartel because the you know, I'll share this with you. You know this anyway. The history of my family is my family predates the cartels, so I can, you know, I'm fortunate in the place I am because I sit separate to it, but it's a unique space to be in. Now, unfortunately, what happens in Oldham is that these cartels are clinging onto power, and the only people they allow to become councillors or politicians or in any civic space is the cartel endorsed foot soldiers. So for instance, in Coldhurst, you've you know, on one level you think, wow, isn't it great you finally got a woman councillor, Ruji Sultan or whatever. Yeah, you know, on one level you think, great, you know, you've got a woman councillor, and then you find out
cartel going.
She belongs to the OBA. She was a former director of the OBA, and not only was she a former director of the OBA, she was also an activist for YMO, the Young Muslim Organization, who are, many of us consider the YMO as the pathway to radicalisation. You know, they were recruiting kids in our towns and cities in the 90s, and they were sending them off to Afghanistan and play, you know, all of that. So it's like, but none of that matters because she runs on the cartel ticket. She could have been anything, right? So the white people outside think, oh, isn't it great? But it's not great because just because she's a woman doesn't make her right. Just because you're a black person as a candidate doesn't mean, you know, you can forget all the other things about you.
But again, for people who don't know how the cartel operates, if you look just in Coldhurst alone, even being a Labour councillor, you're not safe and secure because once they're finished with you, they'll just turf you out like they have done to other people.
Yeah. They're not interested, are they? And the other thing, and this is the racism that exists, and it is racism. We'll talk about racism later because I want to talk about the Shaw Cryer issue later. But the racism that exists in the Labour Party, as I tell all my Labour Party friends, is they only want black people who do as they're told and fulfill a certain space. So people like me, who are black, who want to talk and have an opinion on a broad range of issues and not just race or community or being a Muslim, there's no space for them.
Not allowed.
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to have an opinion on child, you know, the education, on child abuse, on safety, on the environment. The only the time you can have an opinion, you know, you're wheeled out to have your 20 seconds on race and then wheeled back away. It's the most racist organisation I have ever known.
On that note, I think we're going to call it a night.
I'll let you get on. I can see your wife is cooking or something in the background. Pass on my regards. Thanks, Marv.
Well, thanks a lot. Cheers.
Okay. Bye. I think that was Moyab's wife in the background saying, right, you've got things to do. So so that's... if you ever get to Widdop Street post-COVID, knock on his house. His wife is the best cook ever. So I can see why Moyab is slightly larger on the waist than I am these days because he has a supply of tasty morsels.
Do not fear them. Do not fear any of them.